All right, I want to talk a little bit about measures of central tendency. And you might be thinking, well, what is that? Well, you've probably heard of mean or average, median. I'm also going to talk about mode and range. And I've got some examples for you. Okay, so here we go. Now, mean is also known as average. And you've probably more likely heard of average over mean, but really they're the same thing. And an average is, just a general, represents a general value of a set of values or numbers. And so before I get into mean, let me just talk a little bit about a set. A set is usually, shown in these brackets here. So you might have something like 4, 9, 6, 10, 25, and so on. Anyway, so this would be considered a set. And a set is really just a collection. It's a collection of numbers. Sometimes the numbers have, meaning behind them. Other times they're just numbers. All right, now, so an average or a mean is just a general value that represents the collection or the set. Okay, and oftentimes not oftentimes, but the way we write it out is we add up all the values that are given. So for instance, in this case, we would add up all these numbers. We would go 4 plus 9 plus 6 plus 10 plus 25, and then we would divide by the number of numbers in the set. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers, and so we would divide by 5. See what I'm doing there? So in so let's go ahead and figure that out. So let's see, 4 plus 9 is 13. 13 plus 6 is 19. Plus 10 is 25. Or what am I doing? 19 plus 10 is 29. 29. So 29 plus 25, I think it's going to be 53 or 54. 54. So we've got 54 divided by 5. And then we would go ahead and do the division there. And that's going to look like this. That's 1, 0. Bring down that. That's not going to go in. But you're going to add a decimal. So you get some practice dividing. That's going to go in 8 times. So the average or the mean would be 10 and 8/10. Okay, out of all these numbers, this would be the mean. It's just a general representation of those numbers there. Now let me just write it out kind of as a formula, just so you kind of get the idea here. So I'm going to say the mean is equal to a set of numbers, and we're going to add the individual numbers or values, and you might see something like this, and I'll explain it to you in just a minute. Okay, so this x is a value. It represents a number. At this point, we don't know what the number is, and these little numbers are subsets just to represent that this number, might be different than that number, and also that it could be the same number, but mainly that we're adding another number to this. So in one instance, we could have the mean equals 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5. Notice that some of the numbers are the same. That's not the important part, but what really these numbers are representing is that we're adding another number. So this is the second number, this is the third number, this is the fourth number. And the n is going to represent the last number that's added. So because in this case it's the fourth number, this would be a 4, and then we would divide by that n, which is 4, and then we would we would add them up, divide by 4. So this here is really your formula for any set of numbers that you come across when you're trying to figure out the mean or the average. So let me just go through an example that might be meaningful for you. Let me find my list of numbers here. Okay, let's say we've got some test scores, and let's say that they're pretty good test scores overall. We've got 92 plus 84 plus 75 and 90. Now notice there's 4 test scores, okay, that we're adding together, so we're going to divide by 4. And I'm not going to use a calculator here. It's good practice. We're just going to be doing some skills that you already know how to do. So let me write it out here. 92, 84, 75, and 90. And let's see, I get 34. So 341. Now I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 4. Okay, it's 341 divided by 4. That's going to go in 8 times 32. Bring down the 1. That goes in for sure 5 times. I get 1 left over. I'm going to go ahead and add a decimal, bring down a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. That's 8. 2. I'm going to bring down 1 more because I'm pretty sure I could end at this point. So that's 5. So my average, or my mean score, is 85.25%. Okay, if these all represented percents. Okay. All right. So that is mean, or how to find the average. Let's talk a little bit about the median. And let me get my notes on that. So a median basically means the middle. Okay. And if you think if you're driving on the highway, you know those cement blocks in the middle of the highway, you know, separating one way from the other? That's called the median. Okay, and basically what this means is that half of values will be less than the median. Okay, that's less than, not equal to, less than. And then half of values are going to be greater than the median. Okay. And oftentimes you hear about median salaries or median household incomes. Those are the examples that I'm thinking of. Let's say that we want to figure out the median age. Okay, and there's 2 things about finding the median value. If you have an odd number of values, it's fairly easy. And if you have an even number of values, it's still pretty easy, but there's like 1 extra step. So let me just specify with an example. So this would be if we had an odd number of values. Okay. So for instance, let's say we're examining our ages. Okay. And we have 18, 21, 19, 29, and say 24. And notice they're all kind of mixed up. They're not in order. So the first thing that you want to do if you're looking for the median is order them from least to greatest. So least to greatest. So I'm just going to rewrite. I've got 18, 19, 21. So 18, 19, 21, 24, and 29. Okay? Now notice I've got an odd number of values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is an odd number. What we're going to do here is basically find the middle value. And in this case, it's pretty easy to see that 21 is the middle value. But you know, if you have a really long string of numbers, you could just kind of cross off one on the least, cross off another on the greatest, and go inward, back and forth like that until you get to the middle. So for instance, you can do this. It's like, 21 is the middle. That's a really handy trick when you have a lot of numbers. Now in this case, you know, we've got the answer. So the median age, or the middle age, is 21. Now I also said there's two kinds. So if you have an even number of values, let me get another piece of paper. So even number of values. All right. Like say, you know, say we just look at some number of employees in like 4 random companies, and you know, I'm just making up these numbers, but so number of employees, you know, in a town somewhere, please. All right, in 4 companies. All right, so say we have one company has 17 employees, another has 5, another has 21, and the last one that we look at has 18. Okay, so what we want to do is order them. That's the first thing. That's what we did last time. We're going to do that again. We're going to order the numbers from least to greatest. Okay, least to greatest. So we got 5, 17, 18, 21. Okay, now the second thing we want to do is find the middle, and in this case it's pretty easy to do. We only, you know, we're only crossing off the ends here if you even have to cross off. But basically these two numbers are the middle. Okay, so you're basically going to find the two middle values. And now that you know how to find the average or the mean, what we're going to do is we're going to find the average or the mean of these two numbers. So it's going to be 17 plus 18 divided by 2, because there's only 2 values. Now that's going to give you 35. That's going to equal 35. Divide by 2, you're going to get 17.5. So the average, or excuse me, not the average, the median number of employees for those 4 companies, say if you only had 4 companies in the town, it was a really small town, would be 17.5 people. Now obviously we don't have a half a person, but that's just a value that represents the middle amount. So half of the values will be less, half will be greater than that. And that represents median. All right, let me talk a little bit about mode. I'm going to zoom out. I think I'm too close here. All right. So mode means most. Okay, most. And let's say we're going to look at eye color. Okay, and we take a little survey, And I might do this in class with you as an example. And so, you know, because it's an easy little questionnaire and we can get data right away and then we can do fun things with it. So let's list off, I'm just going to list off a random number of eye color, of possible eye color for students. So I'm going to say blue, brown, green, gray, brown, blue, and brown. So what you want to do when you're looking for the mode is identify the values that repeat, okay? So for instance, we're not working with numbers here, but you know, these items, you know, some of them repeat. So for instance, we have a couple of blues, you know, here's a blue and here's a blue, so there's two blues, there's two. And then we have some browns. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So browns, we've got 4 browns. Now, you want to pick the mode with the most values or the most amount. And in this case, the browns win the mode. Here we go. So there's more browns than there are blues, so the mode would be 4. Now the last one that we're going to talk about is range. Okay. And range is really the difference between the minimum and maximum values. So difference, and think about that word difference. What does that mean? Difference between minimum and maximum values. Okay? So difference, if you thought about it, difference means subtraction. Okay? So I'm going to just, I'm going to think of, say, wages at a company. Okay, what are the different wages? And then we'll figure out the range of wages that you could possibly get, or the range from the highest to the lowest. That's what that really means. So, you know, at this time in Washington State, the minimum wage is $11, which is pretty good. But let's say we've got some other wages in there. Say we've got 13, 25, how about 15? $15. Let's say 17, 50, 22, and let's go with 26.50. All right, you know, we could just make believe this is one company in Washington State. You start off with minimum wage, but you know, put in the hard work, you can move up the ladder there. So let's see what the range, the range of wages. Basically, we're going to take the largest number and subtract the smallest. So if we go 26.50 minus $11, all right, we get 5.15.50. So the range in wages from the least to the most is $15.50. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do in class is, before we get to this lesson, I'm going to give you a little questionnaire, collect some data, and then we're going to have fun in class just trying to figure out the mean, the median, the mode, and talk about the range. And there's more value when you could relate something that is personal and you know, but not too personal. We're not going to get too personal, but it just makes it more enjoyable when you could relate to some of the things that you're working with when you're doing math. Anyway, like always, if you have questions, let me know in class.